All right, so we're going to get started with our next session. How many folks have, at some point in their career, had deployed SMS OTPs or leverage, or like was in charge of that, or had seen the costs associated with that? Okay. So this is going to be a really great talk. So some of you may know that Shopify is an early adopter of passkeys, but this talk is not necessarily about that. This talk is about some of that sort of burden of SMS OTPs and some of the costs associated with that, and how to really consider your MFA options. So please help me welcome Abhinav Lele, who is the staff security engineer at Shopify in Canada.
Hello. Thank you, everyone, for coming for my talk. So briefly about me, I work as a staff security engineer at Shopify. I have 2 kids who keep me busy all the time, and I prefer to be spec compliant because I believe specs save a lot of time. Like, I've had so many experiences in my past work where people try to build solutions thinking like, no, I know best, but following the specs saves us a lot of time, and that's what I try to do every day, day in out. So let's quickly go through what we are going to talk about today. Okay. So we will talk about 3 different areas. So we'll briefly talk about what are the common 2-factor authentication methods. We'll talk about what are the pros and the cons about it. We'll also talk about what did we learn about that. So we'll go into that one by one. So what are the common 2-factor methods that you use? I believe everybody would have a TOTP, a code generator on your phones. The other one is YubiKey, which is probably everybody's talking about passkeys. So what I mean to say is like you could use passkeys for your 2-factor. The third one is push-based messages. So now everyone today has some kind of mobile phone where you have your app logged in to your service. You could always send a push message saying that, yeah, you're trying to log in to some service. Do you want to say yes or no? And that's as easy as that. You don't need to remember one-time codes. You just need to say yes or no. And the last one is the one which is relevant to this talk, is delivering one-time codes. So email and SMS are probably the ones which are the most common ones, but there are other people who are using other mechanisms. But the general idea is delivering codes that the service will generate, and you just enter it through. So let's say you are having a new service, and you have accounts. You just have username, passwords to begin with, and you want to introduce 2-factor. So what do you think? You look at other people, what do they have? And you find out, yeah, SMS is the best one, right? Everybody uses it, so it must be great. So that's how our short-term plan begins. So today, everybody has a phone which can get an SMS, right? I don't think anybody has a phone which doesn't get an SMS. If it did, his or her mom will say, yeah, why don't you get a phone which can get an SMS? I can send you an SMS saying that, are you coming home? So SMS is very easy to deliver. You have tons and tons of service providers who can send you an SMS. So it's not like if you want to send an SMS, you would always find somebody to send it for you. And as an app developer, there are tons of libraries to do it. And plus, this is all these 3 initial points are all from a service point of view. But for an end user, you don't need anything extra other than having your phone. And you keep your phone on, then you get your SMS. But if you see in terms of whether it is good, an end user will say that, yeah, SMS has everything that I want, but from a service point of view, you would always find lots and lots of problems, which we are just going to talk about now. One of the most common things which in the talk earlier where Air New Zealand was rolling out MFA using passkeys and other things. They talked about SIM swapping. SIM swapping is very common there, and it's very easy to take your SIM, and then somebody else gets it, they get the OTPs, and you don't even know that they have your OTP. You sleep one night, the next day your phone coverage is gone, and they can get everything. The easier way, like SIM swapping has some technicalities which would require you to have special things for you to do that, but social engineering is the best one. I remember a friend of mine who went to a bank. He had a $1,000 check to deposit. He went to the bank, said, let me go to the bank. I haven't been to a bank for a long period. Nobody went anywhere, so for him, going to the bank was his expedition after COVID times. So he went there, he came back home. He gets a call from the bank saying that, I forgot to authenticate you. They ask you, can you give me a username? He said, yeah, sure. Can you give me a password? Sure. It said, it's really great. You have a one-time password. You are one of the best persons to do that. We have been trying to convince everyone to have two-factor. So why don't you give me your two-factor code so I can just deposit the check? And the next message that he gets is $10,000 out of his account. So in this case, like, he didn't get his SIM swapped. He just got tricked. So SMS is really easy to phish. So social engineering is best here. What else do we have? Today, we have so many devices connected to the internet all the time that we always want all the information everywhere. You would have sync devices, like let's say if you have SMS coming on your phone, nobody wants to open their phone and see the SMS. They want it to directly be available on your browser. So you have extensions and other sync mechanisms which will synchronize all the data from your phone to everywhere you are logged in. Now, it is good and bad. The bad part is, like, if you do it on a work phone, it probably has a better security model. Like, it will lock in 10 seconds after you stop seeing it. But it will also synchronize on your home machine or a machine which somebody else can see. So the moment they know that, they can get their OTP. The other thing that is bad about SMS is that SMS can be easily intercepted. Again, there are some technicalities on how you can do it, but the element that you can grab somebody else's SMS without them even knowing it is something that is inherently not good for a two-factor method, which is just basically trying to make sure that you are there, but it's not there. So far, what we have talked about are the short-term things. Like, so let's say if I am a service provider or I'm a product manager and say that, yeah, these are things that the user needs to manage. He needs to keep his phone safe. That's not my responsibility. He shouldn't take phone at places where he shouldn't take. He shouldn't be hanging out at places where your SIM can be swapped out or things like that. So let's say we go on with SMS and say that, yeah, SMS is good, let's do it, let's keep it running. So that is when the next step happens. So initially, when you start off, you would have a smaller cost. So let's say $1,000 a month. Over time, it becomes $2,000. You're happy as a service owner, but over time, the cost goes up. And we're going to look into why that goes up. It's not that somebody's trying to take money out of your service by stealing, but it's really complicated. So first off, when you start off your service, your SMS count would be, let's say, 1,000 people or 2,000 people who want to get the SMS. Then people will come back and say, yeah, I don't get the SMSs, or it takes too long to get the SMS. You go back to the telecom provider, and they say, yeah, you should get a long code, or basically a dedicated phone number, which will send you an SMS. So, okay, let's do that. Let me give me a couple of numbers to do that. So you do that. Then one day you have a big sale on your platform. Let's say you are selling sneakers, and everybody wants your sneakers. So you suddenly try to send 10,000 SMSs in a minute, And the telecom provider said, no, you can't do that. You just have a long code. It's not allowed for that. You can just send 1,000 a minute. So then you go back to them again, and they'll say, why don't you get a short code? We'll give you a special name. It's good for your brand. And you get an SMS with your brand name. I said, okay, let's do that. And then they'll say, it's slightly expensive. The earlier one was $1 a month. Probably this is $100 a month. I said, okay, let's do that. I'm a bigger service now. So you go on with a short code. But still, they will come back with regulation. So if you have been using SMS over the past few years, in US you would know that there is a regulation called S10 DLC, where you have to register your templates. So basically the providers would say that you can't send anything to me, you have to tell me what you're going to send. So you have to tell them that this is the template that you're going to send out. Even if it is as simple as this is your one-time code, you need to tell them. So this is more towards the operational cost. So like getting a short code, getting a long code is direct cost of buying services from a telecom provider, but these are things where legal requirements for every country will add more operational costs. So for example, US has 10 DLC. It's not that the one which you do in US will work everywhere. Now, tomorrow you'll send it to, let's say, Canada, you'll send it to UK, you'll send it to some other country. They will come up with their own template that you need to register. And it doesn't stop just at templates. For example, if you want to send it to China, they want a special footer. I don't know why they want it, but they want it. So you have to follow it. So in a way, just sending an SMS with a short code or a long code is not solving the problem, but you have lots of small nitty-gritties that keep piling up, and these keep adding every year. Now, as if this was not enough, cost of sending SMS is not same. If you want to send an SMS to US or Canada, where it's probably $0.0 some dollars or cents, if you want to say, or just a cent. But if you want to send to Russia, it's 500 times more expensive. Or if you want to go to Indonesia, it's I think 250 times expensive. So depending on how many users you have, the cost of sending SMS is very variable. So you probably start off with 1,000 users who are there in one country, but when you want more users for your service, which means you want more people across the globe, which means more costs. And whether you get that much revenue back is something that is always a product manager's decision. Like, yeah, we are spending $1,000 for SMS. Am I getting that revenue back? So that's consideration that you should always know, that SMS is not same across countries. Now, there are so many different types of phone numbers, but I've just listed 4 different types here, like toll-free numbers, premium numbers, VoIP numbers, universal access numbers, and all of them have different costs versus the average baseline. So let's say if you have a cent to send for your mobile number, these will probably be 2 times or 3 times expensive. So depending on how your user base is, your cost will be variable. Now, as if this is, like all the costs that we talked about were something that you as a service owner know, because you know where your users are. They will register with your phone number, so you know that you're going to send it to US, you're going to send it to UK, you're going to send it to Singapore, you're going to send it to Australia, or so many other countries. But the one where fraudsters are really, really good at is SMS fraud. So let's say you started sending SMS to newer countries. You wouldn't know that what telecom providers are there, because you would usually work with some provider, let's say Twilio, OneEdge. There are so many others who provide you services. But these guys, what they will do is, these fraudsters will tie up with the telecom providers. So let's say you send 10 people SMS, they get 10% of the cut. And these numbers are bought by these guys. So they are essentially not anyone or any person. They are just driving traffic towards it. And if you take all the costs that we talked about earlier, SMS fraud is like 95% of it. So an attacker, I can tell you about from experience point of view, like based on volumes, that is, if I extrapolate that, it can easily cost you $1 million in a month or more, depending on how easy your service is open and friendly to the hackers. So it's not easy to catch these guys because they are divided into different countries. You go after one country, they'll move to the next one within 1 hour of stopping them. So these guys are really fishy. They keep moving across countries. Like for us as Shopify, the service that we have, we send SMS for people logging in, and we stopped at one country, and then we can find that they are at the others. So it's not that they are located at one country. So far, we talked about some of the nuances of SMS and why it's not great at sending SMS. We saw that it was insecure because you could easily get it instead of the actual person. There are complications with the service owner, like you have more costs as your service grows, which is not great. And the third is that you have fraudsters who are just trying to trick you and earn money based on your service. Where you don't get anything back, it's just that they get lots of money. So, should we use two-factor authentication with SMS? For some services, which are, let's say, really simple, like you need to think about what is the attacker going to gain by tricking your service. Are you going to get enough volumes for, let's say, SMS fraud? Like if you are going to tightly control where you're sending SMS, or if you know that your accounts are all enterprises who have employees, you probably are fine with it. But the moment your service becomes a public service, something like Shopify, where you can just go and sign up and open a store tomorrow, it becomes complicated. Also, SMS is probably the one which everybody knows. The other mechanisms that we talked about are better. So if your service or your product as such drives users to the other ones, like for example, if your user experience is driving your users to passkeys, or if it is driving them to push-based methods, like it's okay to start off with SMS as a backup where the others don't work. So what did we learn here? The cost of sending SMS to all countries is not the same. You should identify the higher cost numbers. Most of the time, like 90% of the time, those are people who don't want to use your service. They are just fraudsters trying to get more money out of you. Add throttles. I would say like throttles would stop and prevent a lot of loss from your service in terms of cost. So you could do a different variation on what you could do is you could add throttles on how much traffic you send to a certain country per week, per month, to avoid cost shocks. There will always be growth. So you can have alerts which say that, okay, yeah, it was $1,000 today. Tomorrow, suddenly it becomes $5,000. Probably you had a campaign going through where you got a lot of new users. So probably that is legitimate. But if suddenly you see that that $5,000 is coming from a country where you don't have any users for or any thing attached with your product, you probably need to stop that down. The other aspect that you can also take a look at is people who want to earn money out of you running your service which delivers SMS would never confirm back. They'll just send an SMS and then they're happy with it because that's what they want. So you can measure how much traffic is just requesting OTPs but never confirming back. So use better mechanics than 2FA. Probably use them as a backup, but not as primary. Passkeys, everybody's talking about passkeys today. So go passwordless. Even we are doing that. There are things in motion, so it's great. Use push-based methods if you think that passkeys are not suited for your use cases. And then there's the friendly authenticator, which lives for the test of time. So you could use Authenticator as well. That's it from me. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Yes, you can. Does anybody in the room have any questions? We did have a couple questions in the app. So folks were hoping you'd go into a little bit more detail about the fraud. Exactly, what's the financial model? Like, how do the cyber criminals get money from this?
So the way it works is like let's say you have a number which is 905, starting with 905. And after that, so 905 represents a block of numbers. So what they would do is they would sign up with, let's say, 1,000 accounts. They start with 905, 123, 905, 124, and then they'll just keep adding new accounts with those numbers. From a network provider point of view, 905 represents a certain telecom provider. So all traffic that goes to that is accounted for that telecom provider. The fraudster has tied up with the telecom provider saying that all traffic that I drive to you from this place is what I'm going to send you, because it's not legitimate traffic. These are numbers from places like Afghanistan where people are not signing up for your services. They're just phone numbers lying there with no use, so they're just sending traffic there. The fraudster would have some kind of agreement saying that, okay, you get $1,000, give me 100 out of it. So they're happy with it. And the $1,000 is actually paid by you as a service owner.
Right.
Whereas 900 goes to these telecoms, 100 goes to their pocket.
Okay. That's really interesting. So, okay, so these are shady telcos.
Yep.
Okay, just making sure I'm clear on that. The other question that came in was, the first part is, so you see push as preferable to SMS OTP. Do you agree with that? Okay, so the question is, the question has an assumption that folks that are not tech savvy are not as willing to adopt push notifications. So do you have any recommendations for encouraging adoption of push notifications?
I think push has more UX nuances as passkeys. Sometimes some apps assume that if you have a mobile app, the user will understand that, yeah, you can use it for two-factor. For example, like I use Scotiabank for my banking. So the moment you log in there, they assume that that is your two-factor method for push, but there should be consent. So there should be consideration that the user wants to opt in and not you as a service owner telling that, yeah, you should use this as two-factor method. So there is definitely user experience from a service and a product design point of view, which is essential here. So if that is right, then I think push should work.
All right. Turn me down? Okay. Well, thank you so much. So we are at time now. So please help me to thank him again for a great talk.
Thank you, everyone.